Hello and welcome. My name is Céline and the clothing rack is here, which can only mean one thing. It's time to share everything I made in 2024. This video holds a very special place in my heart because everything I knit in 2023 was the very first one I posted to YouTube. So this officially marks my 1-year YouTube anniversary. Quite possibly one of the best years I've ever had. I've definitely found some form of inner peace within me, and I owe that to making videos and interacting with you, watching, subscribing, and commenting. You've just been making me the happiest girl, so thank you so much for being here. I also came up with the idea of encouraging you guys to leave a comment under this video for yourselves to read in a year's time. I'll make the promise now that in next year's video, where I'll be sharing everything I made in 2025, I'll remind you to come back to this video that you're watching just now to read the comments that you left yourselves. It's time to talk about knitting and a little bit of crocheting, so I'll begin with what I'm wearing today. So this is the blouse number 1 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I made it last year and it's one of my favorite pieces. It's a really pretty simple boat neck saddle shoulder blouse with slight bell sleeves made in 2 strands of Knitting for Olive's pure silk. The shade I went for is ice blue. It makes me feel like a princess. I think it's specifically because of the boat neck. It's very regal. One of my dreams is to make this in black and knit it longer into a dress. It would just look so elegant and classy. It's worth mentioning that with this yarn, if you work it single, the garment will tend to stretch over time, but holding it double actually changes it entirely. I made this a year and a half ago. I've worn it so much. I've washed it multiple times and it looks exactly the same as it did the day that I bound off the last stitches. And now let's begin with everything I made in 2024. I began my knitting year super gloriously by making the Stockholm sweater by Petite Knit. Definitely my most worn piece this year, knitted in one of my favorite yarn combinations that I found. This is a beautiful drop shoulder sweater knit top down. You begin by casting on at the top of the back and there is no short row shaping or any type of shaping at the back. You then pick up the stitches for the shoulders and that's where you do German short row shaping, but also shaping for the neckline. The fold on the collar is encouraged by a couple of rows that you knit in double knitting. The body is tapered with some decreases down the sides and then bound off after a nice section of 1x1 rib. I wasn't a fan of how rapid the decreases were down the arm. That resulted in a really narrow sleeve. I wanted something a bit looser, so I just spread fewer decreases to make it wider. This is the piece that taught me that if you pick up stitches for the shoulder in between the stitches from the back panel, you'll create a nice seamless join and the stockinette will almost look like it's all one piece. It's these sorts of little details that make this piece so exquisite, but what makes it even more exquisite to me is the yarn combination that I used. So this is Cesia, Mistral, and Vivian held together. It's just their superwash merino and their mohair, and I can never remember which one's which. I usually would stay away from superwash, but this is definitely an exception, especially held with this mohair. This mohair is amongst the softest mohairs that I've tried. The silk core is exactly the same color as the fluff. So it makes up for the richest, most beautiful color, and it also fluffs up so good after you block it. I've never had a mohair fluff so beautifully. Petite Knit actually knits this in 2 strands of mohair, which after making it in this yarn, I don't recommend you do that. Use something that's got more body. Either a merino with a mohair, any other substitute that has body and nice consistency that is able to match gauge. I recommend this pattern 200%. It's the perfect round neck sweater. Definitely recommend you do those modifications on the sleeve because I personally think the sleeve is too narrow the way she's intended it. It is so good and I rate it a 10 out of 10. Next on the list is the Majestic Smoke the Sweater by the Knitting Shura. My camera always goes green when I hold this lavender piece up. It's so strange. This was a test knit for Stefania, who actually taught me how to read my first knitting pattern 4 years ago. She's also one of my childhood best friends' mom, so this piece is very special to me. It's knitted seamlessly, top down, beginning with a 1x1 twisted rib folded collar. Then it develops into this gorgeous smocking stitch circular yoke, which this stitch also trills down the sides of the body and then splits into a high-low hem, which is also in twisted rib. I loved the smocking stitch so much I had to modify the pattern and have it on my cuffs too. And Stefania later added that to the pattern, so you can do that as well. And it's so pretty, I love it. I made this in 2 strands of Drops Kid Silk, which I don't really recommend for this design because it's itchy even on me. I have bionic skin, I'm very blessed, and I'm not bothered by anything pretty much. I can still wear this the whole day, but there will be instances where I'm just scratching my neck and it's a little bit irritating. So definitely go for something a little bit silkier, or you can just substitute the yarn and use an alpaca or something that works with your skin. I don't think I had ever done a circular yoke before this, and I was pleasantly surprised by the fit. I actually thought it was very flattering. I did insert an elastic inside the folded collar just because I wanted it to adhere to my neck a little better. The smocking stitch down the side of the body is my favorite thing ever. It's so beautiful and I get big compliments on this one. Let's talk about a couple gifts that I don't have with me, but I have a couple of photos. So I did the baby bear bonnet by Knitting for Olive. This is the baby pattern I recommend the most if you don't know what to make for a baby. It's so cute and special and original, and it's also so fast. I've made 2 of them, and both of them, it just took me a day. Making this piece is highly engaging. So you start by casting on at the front of the head and then you just work your way back. It's a head turner. It's so cute. You see a baby with little bear ears. Oh my gosh. Any parent will just be shook receiving this piece. It's so good. I want it for myself. The next piece that I gifted was the Handstone sweater by Petite Knit that I made for my brother. I used the gorgeous combination of merino and soft silk mohair by Knitting for Olive in the shade Petroleum Green. It's a very simple men's raglan sweater, knitted seamlessly top down. It's got some short row shaping at the back, and it's got a double folded collar, I believe in 1x1 rib, but I didn't like the look of that because the overall fabric of the body was quite thin, and I think that the neck looked a bit too bulky, so I just went with 2x2 rib and I didn't fold it. The 2 Knitting for Olive yarns work so well together. They make the most drapey, soft and light, airy fabric, and also the color selection is magnificent. Not only there is such a wide range of shades, but they're also so beautiful themselves. There's not one ugly shade in that range. Next, we have a crochet piece that I had put on hold for a while and I finally finished in February, and it is the Aura Top by Moonchain. It's a little bit hard to show on the hanger, but this is a cropped crochet puff sleeve, ruffly goodness, corset beauty. This is actually so much crocheting because of all the ruffles and all the gathered fabric. Amanda, the designer, did an incredible job with this. There are so many amazing details and I can't even imagine designing something like this and writing a pattern for it. It's crazy. We have the lovely band at the bottom that cinches in the waist, and that's where the corset strings are attached to, and that's bordered with a beautiful little ruffle. The bust is obviously all gathered. We have a little tie closure here. The puff sleeves are for sure the main character. I think I made them a little bit too puffy just because the fabric sags and covers the ruffle at the arm. The thing with this pattern is that it's made to measure. There isn't any gauge that you have to match. It's a lot of intuitive crocheting, so the reason why the puff sleeves are a bit too large, that's completely my fault, not the pattern's fault. This is amongst the most advanced crochet pieces I've ever tried, and the hardest thing for me was crocheting over the elastic that we have at the shoulder. It was just a little bit hard to crochet around it without it staying stretched. Overall, this design is so effective and one of a kind. Another pretty advanced piece that challenged me quite a lot are the Aena socks from 52 Weeks of Socks. This sock is knitted cuff down. It starts with a band of twisted rib and then heads into this dip stitch motif, which is worked within a twisted rib background. Fortunately, you only had to work the knits through the back loop and not the purls. That would have made this sock an ultimate nightmare. But yeah, it was quite fun doing the dip stitches, I must say. The problem came up with the sole. So it's got this decorative sole shaping. I don't know if you can see it, but the sole goes like that. Oh my gosh, I had so much trouble understanding the pattern. I don't know if it was because the original pattern had been translated to English and clarity was lost a little bit, or if it was just me. This sole shaping gives the sock a pretty peculiar shape. I do find that there's quite a lot of extra fabric at the heel, but it's still a beautiful sock. I think the dip stitch pattern is gorgeous. I sadly don't really wear my hand knitted socks in general very much. I guess I could wear them a little bit more in the house, especially these ones because they're nice and thick and cozy because of all the dip stitches. The fabric's quite thick. I forgot to show you the toe of the sock. So we have dip stitches all over and then they come together at the toe in this twisted rib, and I was so fascinated by this section and how the decreases were placed, and they're made absolutely invisible, and it's so neat. I was in awe of that. And by the way, the yarn I used for this is hand-dyed sock yarn from Skein Queen that I got from Wool on the X yarn shop in Exeter. One of my first project vlogs on YouTube actually documented me making the Aena socks as well as the Aura top, the crochet one that I just showed. And it just feels like a lifetime ago, although it was just March that I made it, and it's just crazy to watch the vlog back and see how my video production skills have changed in only a few months. I do owe a lot of that progress to Skillshare, who is the kind sponsor of today's video. And if you haven't heard of Skillshare, it's the ultimate learning community platform designed by creatives for creatives. It houses thousands of classes led by industry experts covering all sorts of topics ranging from crafting, illustration, cooking, baking, photography, all of it. I hope it translates in my vlogs, but in the last months, I've been so determined to bring the storytelling in my vlogs to a whole new level, and Carrie Cake's class on romanticizing your life for YouTube vlogs has changed the game for me. I had never tried mood boarding or creating storyboards. I had never recognized the value of B-roll footage. So Carrie's class is really helping me add that magic to the vlogs, and I really hope you guys perceive that as well. Starting YouTube was one of the best ideas I've ever had, and to all those people watching who would also like to post videos, this is my encouragement to you to just give yourself that final push and just do it. The resources on Skillshare can do the hand-holding, providing you with valuable guidance to build a successful YouTube channel. So if you'd also like to join the Skillshare platform, the first 500 people to use the link in my description will receive 1 month free trial of Skillshare. The next piece I'd like to show you is an accessory that I've loved this year, and I've talked about it plenty. It's the Simple Knit Hood by Leah Leake. It doesn't look like much when it's not worn, but here's a little video of me putting it on. I just love the versatility of this and how you can wear it on your head or just plop the hood down. I love how you can transform every single piece in your wardrobe into a hoodie, and it looks so cute. It's such a good styling piece, makes your winter outfits stand out, which I find very hard to look cute in the winter just because I've got so many layers and I look like the Michelin Man. And it was such a fun pattern, really fast. I think I made it in 2 days. Gauge is 16 stitches, so it really works up fast. And it's a good one skein project. I used the Camel's Yarn hand-dyed Merino DK in the shade Pebble Beach. I held it with their Surrey alpaca lace in the same shades. I've said this before, the cast on for this piece is the only tricky bit. It's not super clear in the pattern, or maybe it's just not explained much. So I'll link a video that a really kind lady made just to show you how you can cast this on. And once you're done with that, you're going to be golden and going to have so much fun. It's finished with an I-cord border, which is really cute. And it's nice and neat. I love it. I wanted to show you a gift that I made for my friend. It's the Helina Bag by Mermaids Yarns. I didn't get a chance to show it on my YouTube because it was a very impromptu, happened very quickly sort of gift. I don't even know if I have a good photo. Let's see what I find. This is it, green and pink. If that's not good enough, I'll also put a video of the bag that I made for myself. I made a Helina bag for myself the year before, so this is what the design looks like. It's really fast. I made it in a couple days. It's really fun to come up with a color combination, and definitely the one I made for my friend was outside anything that I would ever try, so that was really fun to experiment. In fact, let me go get the one that I made for myself. Here it is. So you crochet this bag bottom up in the round, and then once you reach the top, you just shape the sides individually alongside its strap. The straps are then tied together in a special way that makes them adjustable, which is obviously the best feature of this bag because it means there is versatility. It gives you options. You can definitely style this in at least 3 ways, and I'm sure if you get creative, you can come up with even more solutions. The downside of this bag is that the straps are made with double crochets, so it does really stretch, and it almost feels like you can't really put too much in the bag. Low-key, even a phone feels a little bit too heavy. It's still fine. I still go around with my phone, but then other than that, don't put much in here. I'm sure it would help to line the bag, which I haven't done. In case you're wondering, for both bags, I used the same drops cotton. Is it really a year of knitting without knitting a mini scarf? This is the one I went for in 2024. It's the chain scarf by Knitharina. I'm gonna double check again, but last time I couldn't find this pattern anymore. It's like she removed it from the face of the earth, which is tragic because it's beautiful. It's this really pretty mini scarf with this faux chain cabling twisted rib situation. It's so pretty. I love the little tails at the end. They're so cute. I made it with one skein of Cardiff Cashmere Classic. The pattern has some nice charts that were really easy to follow. It was a pleasure making this. It was really, really enjoyable. I only had one issue with the pattern, so I used the yarn that she recommended, and she said that you'd be able to knit the scarf with one skein, but I got nowhere near the amount of repeats that she was recommending with one skein. So my scarf is a bit short. I can't wrap it around my neck twice. I can only kind of create a decorative bow. It doesn't really do anything for my throat and for the cold weather, so that's the only downside of this. It is adorable, but yeah, one skein I don't think is enough. In fact, if I were to make this a second time, I would do 2 skeins and knit it even longer than she recommends, just so I can wrap it around my neck at least more than once. The other thing to keep in mind is that this scarf does have a right side and a wrong side. So the way you place it on your neck, you kind of have to be strategic, and you can't just plop it on and it'll look amazing. If you want it to look really good, you just have to work it and place it and style it a little bit. That being said, I still love it and wear it often. Moving on to the Ranunculus by Midori Hirose. This is one of the most popular patterns out there. Last time I checked, there were like 27,000 projects on Ravelry of people making this. I understand the hype. I had the time of my life making this. It's so enjoyable and fast. The versatility is a selling point, I think. You can knit this on any yarn you want on 6mm needles, whether that be a lace weight, DK, up to a worsted weight. I used a cotton linen blend from Rowan called Creative Linen, specifically 2 hanks, so that's 400 meters. I made it in the smallest size, which already has quite a lot of positive ease. And it's gorgeous. I love the drape that this yarn has on the 6mm needles. It's really, really cute, paired with a nice tiered cotton white maxi skirt. I think it's definitely a cute look, and I'm excited to be dressing that way next summer as well. Once you download the pattern, you realize why it's so popular. It just goes so in depth. It provides different options for the collar or the sleeves, so if it's not necessarily your style of garment, it's a really good option for gift knitting. It's a speedy project that you can knit with whichever yarn you want. It's not limiting whatsoever. I did a little modification on my Ranunculus and omitted the ribbing at the body. I just preferred the look of plain stockinette, and the cast off I ended up going for is the same one that she recommends for the sleeve, which I loved so much. I thought it was such a good cast off. Runner up for favorite thing I've made this year has to be the Love Letter top by Kutuvakika. I mean, let's give it a moment. And I don't really have to explain it. It's just so good. There's so much lace, so much going on, but it works. Look at the hearts here and the hearts down here and the little motif down the side of the body and the I-cord edging and the back. Look at this feathery eyelet goodness. It's gorgeous. It was the most fun. So many charts. I love knitting with charts. And let's not even talk about this shade of red. This is the best red. It's knitted in 2 strands of 100% Lino by Katia. I made 2 modifications to the top. The first one being omitting the baubles that decorated this strip of hearts. It was for several reasons. First of all, I thought it was a bit too much. I didn't really want anything protruding from my top. The other reason is I feared that with this yarn being held double, the bubbles would have come out just too stiff, and I didn't really want that. So that's why I omitted those. And then the second modification was just distributing decreases across the I-cord on the armhole. I was doing the I-cord the way she described in the pattern, but I found that it would plop forward a lot. So I just distributed some decreases here and there, and I think it created the perfect armhole. Let's move back to crochet with the Sweet Fay Cardigan by Moonchain. This is a stunning layering piece made in this pretty flower design. It's got a tie closure and cute little scalloped edge all throughout. The edge actually encourages the sleeve to flare out a bit despite there not being any increases at all, but I love that look. I made 3/4 sleeves, which I've never made before, and it's such a pretty look. This is a made-to-measure pattern like all of Moonchain's designs, and if I were to do it again, I would make it a little bit bigger. I was just a little bit lazy and did less pattern repeats than I should have. Fortunately, I used 1 strand of Knitting for Olive pure silk, so I was able to really stretch it when I blocked it, but like I really stretched it. Still wish I'd made this a little bit bigger, but It's one of my favorite things to wear in summer. It makes me feel so girly and cute. I'm so happy I went for the pure silk with this one. If I had used anything like cotton or linen, it would have worked up so stiff. It wouldn't have had this beautiful drape. So if you make this, please do it with the pure silk. I can't think of anything better for it. In 2023, I promised myself that I was going to release my own patterns the following year, and I fulfilled that dream and I released 2 patterns, and one of them is the Sadie top, knitted in 1 strand of mohair on 6.5mm needles to create this veil of gorgeousness, of lightness, a cloudy layer to wear during the summer. It's knitted top down seamlessly with a contiguous saddle shoulder construction. You can see here it's got a nice border at the top of the shoulder. We have long bell sleeves that are finished up with a non-rolling stockinette edge, and same goes for the body here. To me, the Sadie top looks super chic, but also very comfortable. And that's because it's very oversized, but then it's see-through so you can see your body beneath it. So that's really, really nice and girly. This is a quick knit that you can turn around with very few skeins of mohair. I only used 2.5 skeins for a size small. They were in my stash. I didn't even have to walk out of the house to buy new ones, which was great. So the one I used was Angel by Debbie Bliss. And yeah, I love it. You don't necessarily have to use mohair for this piece. You can use whatever lace weight you want, linen, cotton, whatever. That looks really beautiful as well. Moving on to the cutest accessory that has ever existed on this planet. It's the Honey Bucket Bag by Petite Knit. Look how cute! This is my pride and joy, the honeycomb brioche stitch. Give me a few issues in the beginning. I'm not best friends with brioche, okay? But then we got it. Although it was really tough on my hands, this brioche, my hands really hurt and it was kind of painful, but it was so worth it. The honeycomb is organic looking but geometric at the same time. It's got so much beautiful dimension. It's plush, it's plump, it's squishy. I've had this for many months and I'm still in awe of the construction, specifically of the drawstring casing and how that looks and how you feed through the I-cord. I also love the double folded edge here. I ran out of my main yarn, so I just used 2 strands of the mohair to do the inner side. I made this with the Rowwork 2-ply yarn, and then I held it with the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the shade Dusty Dove Blue. I didn't line my bag, which I should. I just don't know how to sew, so I've not gone around to it. I've not gone around to walking to the tailor's and having her do it because I wouldn't do this myself. The only downside of this are the drawstrings that stretch as you pull on them, you know? I should probably unravel a bit of them to make them a little bit shorter. But other than that, it's stupendous. Sadly, it's getting too dark to film. I think a storm is coming. I'm gonna have to film the rest of this another day, so pardon the interruption, and I'll see you in 2 seconds. Hello, it's me still, just a couple days later with a change of scenery because I'm back home visiting my parents in Italy. So let's carry on with the rest of the pieces I knit in 2024. This one's very near and dear to my heart because it's my first ever design. It's the first time that I experienced the whole process of putting out a pattern. It's the Winnie Sweater. You guys have been showing this so much love in the last couple months. I'm so thankful, and every time I see someone knitting a Winnie sweater or wearing one, I'm this close to passing out from just happiness. The construction is a contiguous saddle shoulder. It's knitted top down seamlessly with some nice bell sleeves. It's very elegant. It's very easy to dress it up or dress it down, which I love the versatility of that. Also, I do love me a brown sweater. If you don't tend to wear brown, I recommend you try it because it's so good, especially a fully brown monochromatic outfit. I would love to make a cream Winnie sweater, but I don't know if I'll get to that in 2025. I've just got so many ideas for different designs that I want to work on. I am so excited to design more and more. It's a whole different world. I'm glad that the Winnie sweater was the sweater that I discovered this whole world with, and yeah, here's to more designs. This is one that I've been obsessed with in the last quarter of 2024, and if you watch my videos, you know that I'm talking about the Songbird Mittens by Erica Hoysa. I made 2 pairs this year, the first one being this hot pink version that I made for myself. This was my first ever colorwork project, which made me fall in love. The pink is Cardiff Cashmere Classic and the white is a nettle sock yarn from Onion. These just about fit me. They're very nice and snug. Had they been slightly smaller, they would have been too small, you know? When I was about to knit the pair for my mom, I knew that they couldn't be this small. She has bigger hands than me, and in general, I thought it'd be nice to have a little bit more positive ease. The size difference is pretty impressive, but let me put this on so you can see. This brown one is definitely a bit too big for me, but I could still wear it. I could still walk around and have it not fall off my hand. And this is just to say that if your mitten turns out a bit big, you might still be fine, just because I feel like it's quite forgiving in that sense. Also, this pair turned out so much better because, first of all, my color work got better, but then I used the same yarn in the two different colors. For the pink one, the fact that I used two different yarns, it made the whole situation a little bit uneven, whereas here it's so polished and beautiful. I used Cardiff Cashmere Classic for the whole thing. Sadly, two different dye lots for each glove, so they're slightly different in color, but I knew that my mom wouldn't be fussed. I don't think she would have noticed if I wouldn't have told her. With my second pair, I wanted to test out not catching my floats, because with my first attempt, the floats are quite visible, especially against the white, and it makes it look a little bit messy overall. With this one, I did not catch my floats. In fact, let me show the inside of both of them. This is no floats caught. Floats caught. To me, it's worth not catching your floats for this piece, just because it does wonders for the design. It's so much neater and more even and just cleaner. The big floats are on the top of the hand. On the palm, they're really, really short, so you wouldn't risk catching anything on the palm, which makes it relatively easy to wear. Before I move on, I want to emphasize that if you like these and if you wish to make them and you think they're too hard, try them out, because they're easier than they look. Next is my most recent design. I'm actually due to put out a call for testers on my Instagram in the next couple weeks, so I'll link that below in case you're interested. But it's the Bubblegum Cardigan. That's the original name. I simply referred to it this way because of the shade that I chose, but I decided its official name. It's the Suki Cardigan. I designed this while I started watching Gilmore Girls for the first time. I'm still watching it. I'm on season 6, which is so chaotic. I wanted to remember this piece as the one that I designed while I watched the show. I initially thought of calling it the Rory, but Rory wouldn't wear a fit like this. And then some of you told me that it reminded them of Suki, and the universe fell into place. I said, of course, this is the Suki Cardigan. Like, it's so Suki, and it's such a cute name. I love it. It's amazing. So I'm so happy with the names. This is a cropped, boxy fit little cardigan. It's got some ribbing on the sleeves and the body, but then it's got a double folded stockinette collar and a nice double knitted button band. It's a drop shoulder construction. The back panel is shaped with German short rows, and so is the top of the sleeves. With this one, it's all about the fit and the shape of it and how it kind of flows onto the body. Love this color. It truly makes me feel like myself. I used the New Life wool from Jirte Garn, which is 100% recycled fibers, 65% of which is wool. The rest is mixed, and they come from old sweatshirts and recycling centers. So it's quite coarse and organic looking and rustic. You've got some really pretty darker pink specks that I love. I said this before, I do wish I had held it with some mohair, just because the color is so sugary and bubbly. I don't know, I feel like a bit of halo would have suited it. But other than that, I'm obsessed with it. And I have been loving cardigans this year. I knit no cardigans the year before, maybe one. It really feels like a Woozy staple. So I'm very excited to release the Suki Cardigan. The day I put out the call for testers for my Suki Cardigan, I will move on to working to this next pattern that I've been promising for a couple months. It's this one. It's still nameless, slouchy, robe-like cardigan. There's so much positive ease in this that you can make it kind of like a wrap around situation. This specific sample is knitted in 5 strands of mohair, but you can make this in whatever fiber you want. You can make it in 1 strand of lace weight, 2 strands of fingering, 1 bulky strand, whatever. I will knit my next sample in 1 strand of mohair. I had one word in mind when I was designing this: drape. A whole lot of drape. This is what the sleeves look like. It's also a drop shoulder construction, but with this one, I didn't do any German short rows on the back panel, which I do want to make that modification. So when I write it and when I knit up my second sample, I will put German short rows, because here I only put them on the front panels. I think I should seriously start thinking about a name for her, because that usually gets me really excited and keen to move things forward and just make it happen. So I'm very excited to have this tested and released. Let's talk about another cardigan. This one is not for me, it's for my dad. I made it as a Christmas present this year, and if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen the reel of him unwrapping the present and seeing the cardigan for the first time and just reacting to it. My dad gives really good reactions. He's a goofy guy. Thank you so much for the immense support and love under that video. It honestly was the most beautiful Christmas present for us both. My dad was so happy to read your comments. So yeah, I made him a cardigan. So this is cardigan number 8 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, which is advertised as a woman's piece, but I saw this guy wearing it on Instagram and he looked incredible.
Non hai visto il
No.
WhatsApp?
No.
Fece per te.
Perché? Cosa c'è? Il formaggio? La focaccia? C'è la focaccia? Anyways, speak of the devil. My Favorite Things made this with many centimeters of positive ease in mind. I didn't want that. I wanted it to be just nicely fitting, like a slim fit, I guess. So just a couple centimeters. So I went for the size extra small. So it meant that he got around 10 centimeters of positive ease with this one, and it just fits so perfect when he put it on. I couldn't believe it. I really enjoy the buttons that I chose. I got them here in Italy at a local merceria. It's 15 stitch gauge, I think, so it was relatively fast to work up. Granted, the double knitted button band, a little bit less, it was a little bit longer, but something that my brother pointed out was that this sort of construction really opens up your posture, because when you look at yourself from the side, it kind of extends the top of your shoulders, so it just looks like you're pulled back nicely, which I thought was such a interesting observation, but it's kind of true, so I thought I'd share it with you. Love this one. I made it with such incredible yarn. This is the Hey Mama Wolf Scatty held with Mokosh. It's the same yarn, but they just are in different weights. Yeah, this is the softest wool in Europe. I always say it's the yarn equivalent of whipped cream. To maintain that softness, they don't spin it super tight, so I predict it will pill a bit, but I just think it's worth it for the softness. It just feels so nice, and it's got a really beautiful, natural, very subtle sheen, which is so pretty. It's just that, oh my gosh, my dad already. I'm just noticing that my dad got some food on it. How typical. I'm gonna have to wipe that clean. But yeah, it's amazing. He loves it. It's perfect. And I really recommend it. Next item on the list is the Orbit hat by Rose Knitwear. I'm gonna pop it on so you see what it looks like. I love Rose Knitwear. She's one of my favorite designers. All of her patterns are so fun and different and original. I think I knitted this one in like 24 hours. I had the time of my life. It's so fun. This is what she looks like. She's fun and a bit different. It's kind of nice actually. It's wrapping my head in a really comforting way. I kind of don't want to take it off, but I will. I made this with some stash yarn in between projects because I just needed something to get me out of a knitting slump. And this was perfect. It gave me that instant gratification because it's so chunky. I learned a new stitch. It was very exciting to work it up and see it grow. Always very keen to use up yarn from my stash. And I found the perfect pairing. The cream is Drops Andes, and then the green one is this really soft alpaca yarn from Juniper Moon Farm. It's Harriet Great. I really want to make another one in neutral shades, 2 tones of like camely shades. Look at that stitch, is scrumptious. I love it. I did say this piece served to take me out of the knitting slump, and I'm just going to tell you what put me in that knitting slump. It's the festival dress by Petite Knit that I knit for my baby cousin Samia, who turned 1 in August. When I went into this, I said, okay, it's gonna be her 1-year birthday present. She's only a small baby. She's a small child. Surely it's not that much knitting. Boy, was I wrong. Knitting that dress on such small needles turned out to be more tedious than an adult sweater, especially for those colorful lines. Those were so painful, hard on the hands. I just didn't have a nice time. And I think part of it is due to the fact that I just wasn't expecting it to be such a labor of love. I feel horrible talking badly about my experience making this dress because the finished object is so beautiful. I genuinely would make that dress for myself, and I wouldn't be surprised if one day I tweaked the gauge and modified the pattern to make it my size because it's so pretty. I just didn't have the right mindset, I think. But now it's been done. The dress is finished. I'm so happy I've completed it because Samia looks so adorable wearing it. And I think it's still amongst the best pieces I've ever made. I consider myself to be quite lucky actually when it comes to making pieces, and my knitting experience in general is quite smooth sailing, and I end up enjoying most of the things I make and getting a lot of wear out of them. So I think it's only fair if sometimes I go into a project and it's not that smooth sailing and things go wrong or things don't go as I was expecting them, or is just not the most pleasant thing to make. I think it's normal, and that's part of being a knitter, and I actually feel proud that I still stuck to it and I completed it. I enjoyed Petite Knit's samples so much, and the colors that she used, that I decided to recreate them. So I used the same base yarn, which is the Sandnes Garden Sunday, in the shade Whipped Cream, which is the Petite Knit collaboration. And then I just used random cottons from my yarn stash to do the colorful lines. And I also recreated the colors that she used. And I was very fascinated to discover that that black line worked so well juxtaposed to those pastel-y shades. I wasn't expecting it to look so good, but I really recommend you do it if you also like her sample. Then let's go for the other pair of mittens that I've made this year. These are the Frost Mittens by Ingrid Berg. I switched my main color on the two hands just to switch things up a bit. This is the palm. And yeah, I just followed the pattern entirely. I only made one modification, and that was to add 2 Latvian braids to border the cuff, which I think is such a pretty detail that really gives, like, finishes the glove off very nicely. So I recommend you consider adding Latvian braids if it's not already a feature in the pattern that you're following. This pair is also quite snug. I feel like when I started color work, I was quite tight, and now I've relaxed a little bit. So they're also nice and snug, but they're so beautiful. I'm also obsessed with this color combination, which was very unintentional. I had never really thought of pairing a light gray with a purple. It was just all I had, really. I had to pair these together. It was basically my only option, and I think it worked out so beautifully. It's a combination that I don't see often at all, and I think it's so chic and elegant. The yarn is Holsgarn, Haya and Lucia held together, and it makes up for a really soft and fluffy combination. I'm seeing on my list that I've yet to talk about the Northland sweater that I made for Mr. Woozy this year. It's a pattern by Petite Knit, and I've talked about it quite a lot on several of my videos because I made it for my brother the year before in 2023. It's a really, really, really good design. But what I want to focus on today is the yarn that I used. I went for Knitting for Olive's Heavy Merino, and it was the first time I held it single. I realized that the wear is unlike anything I've seen before. I made it back in May, and he wears it way too much. It's kind of tragic. I should totally make him another one just so that he can alternate. And it looks like I just finished it. It looks like I bound off yesterday. It has not pilled one little pilly thingy. As I said, Mr. Woozy's favorite sweater, and it's not because I made it, it's because he genuinely loves the fit. It's just the saddle shoulder construction. It serves so many different body types so well. Everyone that I've seen wearing it just looks incredible in it, so I really recommend it. It's really, really good design. I now want to show you one of my favorite makes of the year, and it's the Hirschhorn Bomber by Kit Couture. It's giving happy, cute, cool, trendy, carefree. This is my happiness cardigan. It makes me feel like Elmer the elephant in the best way possible. It's like an ode to me finally wearing and loving color after years and years of insecurities and only wearing black. It brings me a lot of joy, and I genuinely loved making it. I went into it a little bit skeptical because it's knitted bottom up, and then you've got to seam everything, which are two of my not favorite things. But then when it came to it, it was actually pretty enjoyable, and I think it comes down to the type of yarn. It's very forgiving. The tension turns out super even, the stitch definition is gorgeous, so even the seaming is kind of satisfying and kind of fun. It was my first time doing intarsia, and this is probably the best beginner's intarsia pattern you could ever go for. I knitted this from a kit, so I didn't choose the colors, they just came in the box, and I really liked this colorway. This yarn is the Kit Couture yarn, but it's distributed by Filcolana, so it is the Peruvian Highland Wool by Filcolana, is the same yarn, which pills a lot. I must say. So it's kind of annoying, but it's so good that it's worth it for me. The last thing I should mention is that I opted out of including the snap buttons. So the kit comes with a little band and some buttons that you're meant to sew on, but I just didn't love the look of how it kind of tugged at the fabric. And also I enjoy wearing my cardigans open, so I decided to opt out of that, and I couldn't love this piece more. We're almost at the end. We've got 2 pieces left. Here is my Maggie Cardigan by Petite Knit. It's a very special piece because it was my first cashmere sweater ever. And it's the only one I have. I don't have another one. It's a modified Maggie Cardigan because the gauge is different. So the stitch counts are not the ones that you see on the pattern, but the steps and the construction is all the same. The material is gorgeous. The color is stunning. This is my favorite type of red in this neutral, rich undertone. It just looks so insane on everyone. It really brings out anyone's features. Red really lives up to the hype. If you don't have anything in red, what are you doing? I wish I had known about double knitted button bands when I was making this. I mean, I knew about them, but I had never done one before. I went for a normal ribbed button band with this one, and since I knitted this on quite open gauge and the fabric is really soft and drapey, it does this thing where it kind of tugs at the fabric and there's not enough structure on the button band. I think a double knitted button band would have served this specific piece super well. One day I might grab an extra skein and maybe undo it and do it again. I don't know, we'll see. It might not happen, but you never know. The yarn I used for this is Cardiff Cashmere Classic, and I am slightly confused by how this has bloomed. On the songbird mittens that I made for my mom, I just made them, right? I finished them a couple days ago. The way this has bloomed with the wash is beautiful. There is a pretty intense bloom. I don't know if you can see that, but it's super fluffy. Do you see that? This one isn't. The fluff has not come out that way. My guess is just the gauge and the density that I knitted this in. The whole point of me knitting it quite open was to give this space to bloom, but I think it did the opposite. Maybe the bloom comes out when the fabric is super dense, and here it just gets lost because it's not dense and it's more open. I'm not really sure what happened. But this is softer than this. It's still super soft, but it's just not as fluffy as this. Either way, I adore it. It's such a beautifully elegant, timeless cut and fit that's very trendy right now, but I just see myself wearing this forever. Guys, we've gotten to the very last piece that I made in 2024. This one's also a Christmas gift knit for my brother. I made him my own design, sort of sweatshirt style sweater. It's a drop shoulder piece with these lovely increases decorating the back of the shoulders. And what's special about the garment are the edges. So if you look at the cuffs and the hem on the body, they are typically sweatshirt looking. They're nice and thick. I feel like it's a relatively rare feature, which is why I decided to make my own design. It's made in worsted weight. I use the same yarn for my Suki Cardigan, so the Hjertegarn New Life wool. And for my brother, I picked this deep plum, like purpley shade, and it has red, aqua green, and blue specks in it. It's so 80s, it's amazing. The vision I have for this pattern is for it to be, you know, genderless. I don't really want to make it strictly a male's pattern. I'll be working on this pattern in the next couple months, and I've been feeling a lot of spark for designing lately, which makes me super excited and curious to see what I come up with in 2025. I also have so many patterns from other designers that I want to knit this year on my wish list. It's very exciting. I cannot wait. I think it's going to be such a good knitting year. I really want to hear how you feel about the new year coming in and what your knitting intentions are. What's one pattern that you absolutely must make this year? And honestly, any other thought that you may have, whether that be knitting related or not. As always, let me know what's currently on your needles, and if you feel like it, also type up your own little knitting podcast in the comments because I love to read through those. But that was everything I made in 2024. I will definitely be documenting my next projects on my Instagram, so I'll also leave that on the screen for you. In the meantime, I will say goodbye, and I hope to see you in my next video.